Okay, is that coming across okay?
Yep, looks great.
Okay, well, thank you, Q. Thanks for having me today. Appreciate the time, and for everyone on the phone, appreciate you joining. The objective today is to give you an overview of Novell Vibe On-Prem 3.1, which we just released at the end of June, and then to also talk about the new release, which we actually just initiated the beta, our first beta call today for version 3.2. A couple of review of where Novell is with our solutions. So we are in what we call our personal and team productivity with Novell Vibe. I'm going to skip or go through some of these slides rather quickly. Novell Vibe is under the personal and team, like I said, focused mostly on supporting GroupWise, and then of course Messenger is here, and then with our other collaborative data management solutions here on the right side. Vibe really focuses a lot, and you'll see this in our roadmaps and in delivery with both GroupWise and Vibe, a lot around integration. So from a standpoint of GroupWise customers, if you're looking for really efficient and productive team productivity, Vibe is an obvious and nicely integrated choice with integrations. We're just introducing calendar and task synchronization. We have some nice integrations already with Presence with Messenger, and integrations directly within the Windows 8 client. And now all the integrations with GroupWise are going to continue to improve over the next many releases that we have. Another marketing slide about the next generation. I am going rather quickly here in this part of the presentation. I think many of you have probably seen this presentation in the past, and of course the recording will be available later. I wanted to really make sure we have time for the demo and the review of the release. I'm going to skip this one as well. In all of my presentations, I give a high-level view of what we are seeing with Vibe, previously Novell teaming, and we definitely see trends. So this slide is created as a result of the customer and partner meetings that I have on a regular basis, and it reflects how customers are actually using Vibe today. So here on the left, we have knowledge and document management. We see many people using Vibe for project-related activities. In fact, that's probably the most common use case here in Novell, where you have a team or a project, and you create a workspace, and all the collaborative activities around that particular project or team can happen within that workspace. Vibe has nice advanced workflows and forms. Most people do not buy Vibe initially because of this feature, but it's very powerful, and it can be used to augment all the out-of-the-box collaborative capabilities within Vibe, and so it becomes a very effective use for a solution for automating business processes and enhancing collaboration in general. And then on the right is the trend that we've been seeing, probably the most common trend in the last couple of years, where people are using Vibe to replace or augment existing intranets. So it becomes a collaborative or a social intranet site. From the key features that are listed here, we have a broad set of information types that Vibe supports. So what that means is you can have hundreds of different file formats, whether you're using Microsoft Office, WordPerfect, OpenOffice, or many other file formats. We support them, we index them, we secure them. With our custom form capability, you can create unique data or information record types. We support wikis, we have calendars and tasks like I mentioned. We have blogs, discussion forums, photo albums, et cetera, et cetera. There's just many types of information that can be stored within Vibe. It's fairly easy to brand and customize the look and feel at a very simple level. We're going to continue to enhance that in the future. We've got some fairly robust document management capabilities and lots of improvements there planned. I mentioned the workflows and custom forms. Vibe, I would not say from my perspective, is a social networking site, but we do have a lot of social tools and social aspects, and you'll see those being extended in the future. So today you have the ability to get activity streams, you can see users' profiles, you can see their presence, you can tag and share information and follow information rather easily. Lots of capabilities in the social side. It's fairly easable and flexible to set up. We hear this regularly from our customers and partners that from a standpoint of time to value, Vibe can be utilized very, very quickly after initial setup. As compared to some of our competition, we're much, much stronger there. Now, the resource library I always touch on. I'll mention that at a later slide. The APIs are there. We are based on an open source project that Novell sponsors, and so it's very open code base. And of course, the role-based access controls provides a lot of powerful capabilities from that perspective. If you've been watching what we've been doing with Vibe for the last couple of years, we just made a release in December of last year. That was our version 3 release. We introduced a brand new user interface. We're continuing to build on that. I've gotten a lot of great feedback. It's much more simple. A lot of the navigation and just working through the interface is much more intuitive. We've had a mobile user interface for a little bit over a year now, if not even longer. Vibe will automatically recognize that you're accessing it from a mobile device, and will give you a different HTML view, a simplified HTML view tailored to that device of the Vibe UI. The activity stream is also new that we introduced in December. You can think of this as a social feed from a lot of the tools that we use today. You know, you can think of your Facebook wall where you get an activity stream of everything that's going on. You now have the ability to do that within Vibe. You can get an activity stream on any folder or workspace, which is highlighted there on the left, or you can see that activity stream for the entire site or your teams or other places or people you're following. So some great flexibility. And the area that we've worked on for version 3.1, which you'll see when I review, is we've done some enhancements to add new capabilities to this What's New stream. So from an overview from version 3.1, we introduced a lot of new capabilities around task management. Because of my comments earlier with people using Vibe within their projects and teams, tasks is a very important part of that. Vibe and teaming have had tasks for some time, but we did a lot to greatly enhance that. We really simplified and improved the user experience on the task folder. We added subtask capabilities, simple ordering, simple dependencies, and in fact, internally, we manage our entire Vibe product using Vibe workspaces, and our backlog and work that we're doing for each release is actually managed now using a Vibe task folder. It's something that we found to be very effective. Landing pages with the trend that we've seen with people using Vibe as an intranet. The landing pages, we added and extended the capabilities that were already there, added simple drag and drop editing, added some text editor capability and iframe capability. And in fact, I'm going to talk about a partner today that we're working closely with that is leveraging that iframe to do some nice, powerful integrations with their solution in Novell Vibe. I've mentioned the What's New. We've extended some of the capabilities with search. We've got a technical preview out on the connector. So we have the Vibe connector, which does some integration with Novell, from Vibe to Novell GroupWise for calendar and tasks. I'll touch on that a little bit more. And then if there's anyone on the phone who used the old Sitescape Forum product, we added a number of features that brought some parity to Forum, and those are listed here below. This is a screenshot of the task folder. So you can see that the user experience, again, has been greatly simplified. You see examples here of a task that has subtasks. It's very easy to interact with this folder, and we're improving some of the interactions to make this a little more effective. And I'll demonstrate some of this here in a moment. The resource library, if you haven't seen the resource library, this is a place that you can come to and get some great resources around Vibe. So if you start at the Novell website, novell.com, you go under the products menu, you look for Novell Vibe on-prem, and then here you look for the resource library tab. On this resource library are a ton of self-help resources that we've made available. We're adding new resources every week. So initially the library started out with a number of sample forms and workflows, which is available under this section. We have, I think, a little over 50 now. Every form and workflow that's available here has an example form that you can download and import into your own Vive system, and then it has an associated workflow that is attached to that. And the advantage here, we've done some simplifications recently where not only can you get it and import it in the way that we've had it before as a definition, but you can now import it as a working folder, which substantially reduces the amount of time to deployment. Before you had to import it and then configure some things. Now you can just bring in a working folder, but you still have the same ability to modify these examples. So we're continuing to focus on making this more useful and easier to use. So the forms and workflows is where we started within the library, all the samples, and again, we're adding, it's reduced the number of examples we're putting out there because we have a pretty good list today, but like I said, there's over 50 out there today. We've also recently added a whole bunch of new audio and video, particularly sample videos. So if you come out to the video and audio, you get all of these how-to videos. We have about 45, I believe, out there. You can get a basic introduction of how to do different things within Vive. These are all YouTube videos, so whether you access it from this site or from YouTube, it's the same. They're all about, say, let's look at one particular example, the business profile. They're all about 30 seconds to 2 minutes, and it's just a simple overview of Vive and how users may be able to do certain tasks or activities. It's really not oriented as a marketing type video, but it will address a very specific feature or function that you may have a question on. So again, there's about 40 or 50 of these videos out there now. Excuse me, they're all covering basic topics. We still have many more planned. You'll see in the next 3 months more of an emphasis around videos to do things within forms and workflows. And so those will be coming available soon. And then, of course, you've got a number of other things. We have articles, sample workspaces. We've done a number of sample workspace examples that we've added. We started with this academic and government samples, and we've added a couple more recently. Again, these are just much larger examples of workspaces and subfolders and sample content and working workflows, etc. That you, if you're using Vive, might help you to get a much faster head start on implementing Vive. This project dashboard was influenced based on how we're managing Vive internally. And so we're leveraging our own experience and skills with Vive and making that available for you. Now, outside of those resources within the library, you've also got success stories that come out regularly, the sandbox, which I'm going to use for the demonstration today, and then other resources and use cases that are all available there. So hopefully you'll leverage the library and make good use of it. Everything I just showed you is freely available off of the website, like I said. Some validation, again, many of you may have seen this. IDC kind of validated what we were doing with Vive back in November of last year. And then Forrester, it's been a couple of years since they've produced a report, but they've got a Novell in the leader area for collaboration platforms. I'm going to skip this slide, but you'll have it for the recording because I want to focus more on the roadmap and then what we're doing into the future. And then I'm going to stop and give a demo for version 3.1. In fact, I'm going to stop now and do that demo portion. So the demo part is just going to be fairly quick. I'm going to come out here to tryviveonprem.novell.com. This is what we call our sandbox. Now, initially when you log into or you go to this website, you're coming in as a guest. And as a guest, you can get quick and simple access to working versions of many of those forms and workflows. We have a link to the resource library. So this is here within the sandbox. You can come out to this particular sample workspace, for example, and you can see this sample workspace in working form. You can come out and look at some of our example workflows, like this case report. You can look at the particular example attached to it, or if you want to try it out, you can take a look at it right here within the sandbox Here on the left, it shows all the different custom forms that we have that are in working order that you can, again, just come out here and test, see examples. Some things you can do as a guest, like I'm viewing all of this as a guest. Other things you may need to log in order to, say, create a sample form or a sample workflow. From a standpoint of demonstration, I'm going to log in here. And in fact, before I continue, Q, I wanted to just open it up to see if there's any questions so far before I do the demo and then get into the futures.
Yes, there are a few here. Let's see. Okay. Will you provide the ability to prevent users from creating Vibe accounts? It says currently when you use LDAP authentication, there is no way to prevent users from creating Vibe accounts outside of deleting them after creating.
I'm assuming if, I'm not the technical expert here, I'm assuming that if the LDAP sync is across the whole tree, then you're going to get them automatically synced and the accounts created. What I've seen with customers is that if they don't want the entire, say like their entire organization to be in Vibe, but say a subset of the organization, then they'll usually have a subgroup, and then that is what is synced from the directory. But if a team member becomes part of that subgroup, then it would automatically get synced into Vibe, and then that account or workspace would get created at that point. So I don't know if that directly answers the question, but that's what I'm familiar with, how many customers deal with that issue.
Okay. Let's see, there's a couple others here. Will there be an app for this soon? I'm assuming like an iPhone or an Android.
Yeah, actually that's part of what we're doing for this Firestone release, and so I'll touch on that in a few minutes.
Great. Let's see, how far away are we from a full connector release?
A full connector, if the full connector means bi-directional sync, I'm assuming that's what the question is. The initial release of the connector, which I'll cover here in a few minutes as well, which syncs from Vibe to GroupWise, that's part of our Firestone release, so that'll be released in the November timeframe. The next releases or updates of that are planned in 2012. Obviously, the next step would be synchronization from GroupWise into Vibe. So that'll be step 2, and again, that'll be part of 2012. We took this initial approach because most customers, especially if they're in GroupWise is still the primary habitat. And so to facilitate that and not have a very long time before we had any level of synchronization, we decided to stage it and do the one-way synchronization first.
Okay, and then one last one, and then we'll let you move on, is the features in GroupWise and Vibe are very similar in some aspects. Do you expect both products to be integrated into one full-featured product in the future?
I think that's an idea that we have, but it's fairly far out there on the roadmap. So in 2012, GroupWise, as a result of the Attachmate acquisition, you probably saw this from the presentation preceding me, is they've accelerated their roadmap. And so with GroupWise, you'll see more frequent releases. You'll see that we've got a real emphasis on engineering and the quality issues that some customers have struggled with. I know the GroupWise team is expanding. They've got a number of open positions here in Provo, Utah. I know they're expanding the testing team. So GroupWise, I think, has a set of priorities that needs to be taken care of in the next 12 to 18 months that, from my perspective, would have to be taken care of before we did any deep, what would be the word, singleization, if that's a word, right? If they become one or if they become just the feature set is shared, I think that's out past the 18th month mark. I know that there's a couple of releases for GroupWise. You've got the Ascot release that's coming up at the end of this year. They've got a Cardiff release that is planned before the summer of next year, and then the Windermere release, which is planned for the end of 2012 or early 2013. Vibe is starting to align our resources to that same time schedule. So we'll have deeper integrations at the same time as the products update. And like I said, this is a long answer, I know. We have talked about these products coming together, whether they come together under one product or we simply under the cover start to share features. So for example, let's say calendars. there's not a lot of reasons why we need to have a different paradigm for calendars in Vibe than we do in GroupWise. And so that would be an example of something that would make some sense for us to make common. But I don't know if we've made the decision to make it one product yet. But there's definitely a lot of feedback leaning that direction, and we certainly have a lot of motivation around expanding the level of integrations between Vibe and GroupWise.
Okay, perfect. Let's see. Then let's do one more, and then we'll let you move on. It says, can we connect to an outside email system via IMAP like we can in Virtual Office?
From Vibe, no. There's not a way. You can certainly have any email system that Vibe might use for notifications or to accept emails from. We don't really have any restrictions there. But from a standpoint of surfacing emails through IMAP or POP within Vibe, we don't have that yet. Within what we do expect at some point in the future is within a user's personal workspace that they'll be able to get a view of their own email from GroupWise, as well as a view of email from other systems like Gmail or Yahoo or something else. And that would be through IMAP or something like that. But that's down the road, certainly not a focus for 2012. We do expect, once we get into late 2012 or into 2013, that the web experience between GroupWise Web Access and Vibe will become very, very similar, if not one and the same. But that's still out there a ways, and it doesn't directly answer the question around IMAP. But the nature of the question, I think, is consistent with where our minds are thinking and where we're going.
Okay, perfect. That's all we have for now, and we'll get to any other ones later on.
Okay, great, thanks. So I've logged into, again, I'm out of the sandbox, try Vibe on-prem.novell.com. I've logged into my account on the sandbox. If I click on my name, I go to my profile. That's my picture. This is a picture looking outside my office up at the Timpanogos Mountain. That was last summer, or yeah, early spring, I believe. You see all the snow there. But here within TryVibe, I've got my profile. Let's highlight some of the features that are new within this release. One of the examples that I want to highlight before we get into that is how we've used Vibe to manage some of our projects and folders. So we've recently just finished the beta for version 3.1. And this is the workspace that we use to manage that beta. It's the first time we've managed a beta within Vibe, and it turned out to be very, very effective. Within this workspace, we communicated what the basic feature functionality is for this release. We have a number of quick links for all of our beta sites. We had about 30 to 40 beta sites that participated in this particular beta. We have a number of discussion forums that the team participated regularly in. And then as we gave different features, as we were letting our beta sites know how these features were used and demonstrated, we created sample videos that were shared with those beta sites. But this workspace became a very, very effective place for us to manage the beta. We had a communication folder where our project manager, Tom Urquhart, anytime he sent a communication to the beta sites, that communication also went into this beta, this communication folder. And this is simply a blog folder within Vibe that has an email address attached to it that only Tom can contribute to. And so any of our beta sites can come in and they can go as far back as March and see all the communications that we've had and we've sent out. So if a beta site missed a meeting or if a beta site just needed to follow up and go back on things that were covered before, it became very easy. We did a post survey after the entire beta was over. And on the forums, one of the major areas of focus, let's see, was this what's new feature. And we had pretty active discussion with our beta participants within the forum. So overall, this turned out to be a very, very great use of Vibe and a good example of a real-world example for using Vibe in a project. I'm going to go to my personal workspace, and I'm going to show you the task folder. And this is a simple view of the new task folder. So it's a different Simplified user experience. If you're creating a new task, it works very similar to how it worked before. You can put your description. You have full HTML capabilities here in adding the description. You can add a time period if you want, or just a duration. If you don't fill out these now, it will automatically default to 1 day. We find that many people who are using Vibe for projects, they don't need to fully fill out the details of a task at the time they're creating it. But when that time is done, that task is created, you've got the new task. My new task is right here. Now, directly within this folder view, some of the things that we've added is I can come in here and I can add a new task above, a new task below, or I can create a subtask. When I create a subtask, it just goes right into creating a new task. I'll just call it my sub. And it automatically adds it as a subtask underneath. If I made a mistake and I wanted to move that subtask up, you can see here on the left now we have these check boxes. As I check it, the options above are highlighted. So I can move that left, I can move that up, and then move that back and make it a subtask of the task 3 here. I can collapse the major tasks. I can now have this ordering. This is all relevant here, so I can sort by ordering if I want this task to be a higher order. One of the reasons why this became important for us, the ordering, is you can see that there's a difference between priority and ordering. So even though this task is a priority 1, you may have, in our case, we had many tasks that were priority 1, but we wanted to have our engineers focused on what to do next. And so even though they were listed as priority 1, through this new capability, we were able to order them simply within this task list, and then made it very simple for the engineers to know what their priorities were. Directly within this folder view, it's very easy to change the status, so I can mark things in progress. I can change it from in progress to completed. Here you see that it gets this timestamp now when it was completed. If I go back to in process, I can directly from here, I can update the progress. So the way that this looks and feels is just a lot more intuitive and a lot more simple. And again, within our own team, we're using task folders extensively now to manage our own projects. Now, one question that's come up since we released this task thing is that of how tasks are ordered. If you change the ordering of any of these columns, you see that all of the menu items up here are grayed out. They only come back once you are sorting the list by the order. And you can see that the actions here on this task, like adding new tasks above and below, these actions show up when I'm sorting by order. If I've changed the sort to something else, then I don't have those actions anymore. And I only bring that up because that's something that has come up several times since the release from a usability perspective. Now you see on here that no due date is listed. I'm going to go under task 1, and I am going to modify this, and I've got a duration of 1 day, and I'm going to start it today, and click OK, and then go back to that folder view. And I start to see the date was automatically filled in. Now, because task 3 is a subtask of task 1, it automatically calculated the due date as a simple dependency. So we are not a Microsoft project type task management tool, but we do have this notion now of these simple dependencies. And so if I went into task 3 and I modified it so that way my duration was a longer period of time, let's say 6 days, we're going to see that the completion date for that is going to move from the 21st to a later date, the 24th. And this is listed in italics here because it knows that this date is calculated. The date is not determined by the task anymore. It's calculated by the system. So this notion of simple tasks and dependencies is there now, and it can make a very effective, very simple way of facilitating some task management. Now, if I go back to my demo workspace, This is just something I threw together for a meeting I had weeks ago. I go under the What's New capability. I sort by Show All. We now have a number of actions that are available directly within this What's New view. So the What's New view that we introduced in version 3 last December, we're trying to make it a lot more interactive. So we're doing the same thing with the task folder, is in your ability to change priorities right here within the folder, your ability to change status. The version 3.2 release is going to allow you to change the date right from this menu. You'll be able to change the order right from here. So we're trying to make these options all a lot more interactive and a lot more user-friendly. From the What's New perspective, these actions give you these abilities: reply, share, subscribe, tag, and then mark unread. I can reply directly within here. This makes it much, much easier than what we had on the previous versions. If I go to this task and look at it, you can see that that comment was added right here. This is my reply. And so if someone's consuming information directly within the What's New, these new options make it more effective. Adding a tag is a lot easier now because it can be done directly from this interface without having to go in and modify the entry and tag it that way. So I just added a tag to this My Reply. If I take a look at that and see the Tag tab, here's the My Tag at a tag. So a lot of the things that we've been doing all have to do with simplifying and making this more user-friendly and this more simple. From the standpoint of how we've improved the landing pages, so if I go under the Workspace menu and I edit this workspace, we did some simple things to enhance the capabilities of landing pages. One of those is we've added what we call an HTML widget. So here is I can have the ability now to insert HTML elements directly within the landing page as I'm constructing the landing page. I can come in here and I can format this just like I've done with other aspects of Vibe. I've got that part red. You know, just simple things here. But before, you had to create a separate entry and then save that out to have that displayed in your landing page. So there's just a simple changes from an HTML widget point of view. If I go back and edit the workspace, to move things around is a bit more simple now than it was before. So I can take this new handle and I can move it to different areas of the landing page, whereas before I would have had to create them natively and not have the ability to move it around like this. So it's just a lot more simple and a lot more straightforward from the standpoint of modifying landing pages. Okay, any questions so far? I'm just going to go back to my notes and see what I've covered.
All right, let's see. Okay, will Vibe support full in-page editing like Word or Excel?
I think the answer is no. I'm not sure if I understand the whole question. So when you say in-page editing, can I modify a Word or Excel document directly from within Vibe through the browser? I can open that document. I can edit it in place where I'm opening it. Even though the document is stored in Vibe, I can open it directly in Word or Excel and modify it there. But I can't modify it from a browser, not like a Google Docs, if that's what's behind the question. I can't do that today.
Okay, perfect. Can the iframe function also do reverse proxy, i.e. expose sites to the outside world that are behind the internal Vibe server?
Yeah, actually, perfect. I don't know who asked that question, but they probably knew about something we're working on. So everyone on this phone call is going to get a preview into something we're just about ready to announce. So we've been working with a company called SimplyBox, who essentially does exactly what I think that question just asked. And they use our iframe as a way of integrating third-party systems directly within Vibe. So what we've done is probably nobody on the phone has access to this workspace right now. And I'm seeing it's not, this is still under construction, so it's possible that it might not be there today, which would be just my luck. So I'm going to try another example. Oh, yep, they are building it. Dang it. All right, so here's basically what SimplyBox does. SimplyBox takes fragments from third-party applications, and using our iframe, they take those fragments in this particular example that we're building from an Oracle CRM system, and they insert that particular fragment, which includes live data. It can be one-way or two-way interaction, and that data is surfaced directly here within Vibe. And so what this means is you can focus and have Vibe as your collaboration platform for your organization or for your enterprise. You may have other tools within your organization that you need to surface or interact with that information, but you don't want to have users switching between applications. What SimplyBox allows you to create a fragment to represent the parts of data that you want to interact with or consume, and be able to do that directly within Vibe and stay within Vibe. And it can do that from just a standpoint of consuming data generally, or it can be context and identity aware. So what that means, for example, if this was working, is the fragment that I see on this particular landing page example that connects this Oracle CRM system could be completely different based on my identity than it would be if Q or any other else was to log into that. And they're doing that using iframes. We have iframe support now within our landing pages, and so that's the example that we're building out here. And then, of course, historically, we've also had iframe support in what we call our accessory panel. And this is the example that we're building here, is that we were inserting a fragment from another system to represent task management from a separate system, but still have that surfaced within Vibe. So interesting question and very, very timely. We're just a few weeks away from announcing that, but you know what? We all got a preview of it.
Perfect. Great. That's all the questions we have right now.
Okay, good. All right, well, let's move ahead. I'm looking at the clock. We've got 15 minutes. So from a standpoint of looking at the roadmap, that did not come across well. Let's try that again. All right, there are some lines there, but we'll take what we've got. So Firestone is the release that's coming up in the mid-November timeframe. Again, we just started our beta today. The major things that we're working on for Firestone is around versioning management. This is something that we were not able to get in version 3.1 back here in the end of June. And so rather than wait for a normal cycle of ours, which is 6 to 8 months, we created a shorter cycle for Firestone to specifically get the versioning management out. What this allows is that within a folder workspace, you can turn versioning off. You can limit the number of minor versions, or you can put a time limit on the minor versions. And gives much greater access and control to how versioning management is done within any folder or workspace. We're also adding the mobile apps for iPhone and Android. So these mobile apps will leverage the existing mobile UI. That was the UI that I showed right here. But there will be an app that you can download for your iPhone or for your Android that will store credentials for multiple Vibe sites. It'll have a default, so when you launch the app, it'll just go right into this mobile UI through those credentials, or because we've got multiple credentials stored, if you have multiple Vibe sites, like myself, that you may access, then you can switch very, very easily between those different Vibe sites. So those simple mobile apps will be available as part of this release. We're also working on, one of the things I don't have listed here is that connector. So the connector, which will do the file synchronization between Vibe and GroupWise, will be made available and released as part of Firestone. Separate or parallel to Firestone, we're also working on file sync or offline access. This is one of the things that we're working on from a standpoint of consolidating Vibe into a single platform. I don't know if everybody on the call is aware, but AttachMate has decided to accelerate the consolidation of Vibe Previously, we've had Vibe Cloud and Vibe On-Prem. We're decommissioning Vibe Cloud, and we're taking the top things of Vibe Cloud and pulling them into Vibe On-Prem. A lot of that work for that consolidation is going to happen in this Granite timeframe. But some of the things are already happening, and that's this file sync. There was a bunch of file sync work that was done for Vibe Cloud, and that's all being expanded to include Vibe On-Prem. It'll essentially allow you to synchronize to your desktop the file folders and workspaces that you have interest in from Vibe. So if you have team workspaces that you're sharing files, or your personal workspace, for example, through this Vibe desktop tool, you'll be able to easily synchronize your desktop activity with the Vibe site. And then others on your team will be able to do the same. It's going to be something that will be very powerful and very, very nice to have. We've also will be doing a number of improvements to key feedback around landing pages and tasks. So if I go back to the example workspace that I had, within landing pages, if a user goes in and edits a landing page, today, when you are modifying a particular table, everything is done with columns and percentages. For the Firestone release, you'll have the ability to identify columns and percentages, but you'll also have the ability to identify column width by pixels, which will give you much more control over the look and feel and formatting of the landing page elements. You'll also have the ability within a landing page to put a background image or color. We see a lot of customers who are doing that. So this whole back landing page may have a corporate color or an image that's tied to the team or the project or something, and so that will be there. And then we're also adding an option to remove this menu bar. Lots of people, as you saw how I was able to expand and collapse the branding area in the left navigation, once those are gone, you still have this menu bar. Because lots of customers are using this as a full website, we have the option now to remove this menu bar for everyone but the workspace administrator, so that way you have total control over all aspects of the website within Vibe. Now, on the task side, I mentioned that we're adding a couple of features here. So just in the same way that I can modify my priority and status like this, I'll be able to click on the date, and I'll be able to modify the date and duration directly here without having to open up the entry. I'll also be able to modify the number or order of a particular task directly from here without having to modify the entry. And because we did do the beta this morning, I'll go out to the Firestone beta and you'll see a more complete list. So we've got here the versioning management is there. I've talked about the connector. We're adding file size quota. So if you want to restrict the size of files that can be uploaded into Vibe, you'll be able to do that. We're expanding some of the capabilities within workflows, made some simple improvements to surveys. Similar to GroupWise, you'll have the ability to change one entry type to another. I've mentioned the landing page improvements. I've mentioned the task improvements, the mobile apps. We're always working on quality and performance, and so that will be there. And then we're also making big improvements around the look and feel of emails, whether those be emails that are set up from a notification schedule or because somebody is subscribed to a particular folder or workspace updates. So the look and feel of emails will become a lot more intuitive than they are right now. But those are the major areas for Firestone. From our perspective, again, Firestone is well, I don't know what's going on with that presentation there. Firestone is a fairly small release. It does come only 4 months after the heels of version 3.1. And then Granite we're looking for as being a much more substantial release. That is around the May, early summer timeframe of next year. From the standpoint of what we're focused on in 2012, particularly in the Granite release, we're going to be adding peer-to-peer messaging and IM. And from a user perspective, if you think about Facebook or LinkedIn, you'll be able to send messages directly to others. It won't be just a matter of saving an entry within a workspace. And you'll also have an integrated IM, kind of like Facebook Chat, where it's just a browser window. It will use Novell Messenger on the back end, but it'll be integrated directly within the browser, just like you see with Facebook or Gmail. From a standpoint of consolidating the work that we've done with Vibe Cloud, we really got a lot of great learning from how our message experience was in Vibe Cloud, the notion of quick teams within Vibe Cloud. And so you'll see those things coming in within the Granite and Hudson timeframes, as well as a few of the other areas that you see listed here. So we're continuing to focus on these short release cycles, but for the Firestone timeframe, it's just a little bit shorter because of the focus we wanted to have on the versioning management. And I think the selling advantages, you've seen this before in these presentations, but lots of great advantages to Vibe over our competition. Near the bottom or at the bottom, for our existing GroupWise customers and Messenger customers, we are by far the best and most integrated collaborative tool for those customers. And in fact, this week on Monday, if any customer or partner is on the phone that leverages or uses the Novell Open Workgroup Suite, Vibe is now included as a free benefit to customers who have the Novell Open Workgroup Suite. So all these competitive advantages can be leveraged without any additional licensing or maintenance costs. And that actually became effective this Monday. So it was August 15th that became effective. And then I've talked a lot about these resources. Those are there, the sandbox, the library, and of course the starter pack. And I think that's the end.
All right. Let's see. It looks like there's a couple of questions that came through. The first one is, will the mobile app work through Access Manager?
Yes. Yeah, you think that the Novell production version, what we use for our Vibe site internally, is behind Access Manager. So yes.
All right. And then the next one is, does Vibe have the ability to share files that are hosted on an OES server, OES2 server, or do all shared files need to be on the Vibe server?
Today they need to be on the Vibe site, but that particular question speaks directly to this point here that I'm showing now where it says file system integration. That is exactly what we're working on as far as our roadmap, where Vibe will integrate directly within an existing file system and become an extension of that system, so you don't have to go through a migration or a massive change in how people work with existing files. So we're not there yet. You would have to store that within Vibe in order to share it, but that's exactly where we're going.
All right. Let's see if there's any other ones.
Any other questions?
Okay. Will the existing Vibe 3.1 files need to migrate?
Don't know what that means. So when we do an upgrade from version 3.1 to 3.2, it's a pretty straightforward upgrade. We have gotten a lot of great feedback in our upgrade process, is that most customers, it's quite painless, especially compared to many other products. It's very, very straightforward. So I think the answer is no, but I'm not quite sure if there's more detail behind the question.
Okay, let's see. Any updates on a media server?
It's on the roadmap. It's probably not something that's going to happen in 2012. It was initially a higher priority, but when Attachmate asked us to accelerate the consolidation of the platform, then moving the platform together moved up the priority list. So media server is definitely there, but it's not going to be a 2012 item. At least I don't expect it to. If it did make it in 2012, it would not be until the Hudson timeframe. It definitely not will make it in Granite.
Okay, let's see here. Can we upgrade from 2.1 to version 3.0/3.1 or 3.2?
You cannot. If you If you are on a version, if you're on version 1 or version 2, 2X, which would include 2.0 and 2.1, you have to get to version 3.0 before you can do an upgrade to Firestone. So Firestone supports upgrades from version 3 and then version 3.1. And in fact, when we do the future releases, Granite will also be a 3.x release, and so that will support upgrades from 3, 3.1, and Firestone. But if you have a version prior to version 3, then you'll need to get to version 3 first.
Right. Let's see. Can you access, let's see, hold on. Can you access OES2 files also on NSS file system with the use of mirror folders?
Yes, you can do that. Yep. So through the mirrored folder capabilities, for some people who may not know, it allows, many organizations have a file system or a file store that is typically in read-only mode. They just need people to be able to access it. It doesn't have to be in read-only mode, but that's the use case I see most often. Rather than migrating all those files into Vibe, we have something called mirrored folders that allows you to connect Vibe into that existing file system. It connects through one set of credentials, so that's why I say usually it's a folder that's read-only to a group of people. And then you can interact with that through Vibe. But it's done through this mirrored folder. We do mirror the content, or in some, but I shouldn't say we mirror it. We index the content so you can search it within Vibe. But there are some restrictions in that mirrored option. But most often it's used where people are working within Vibe, they're collaborating in Vibe, they need to access files, but they don't want to go through the migration of everything from a legacy file store.
All right. Looks like we have time for a couple more questions really quick. Is there a simple method to migrate GroupWise library files to a Vibe workspace? Currently, if you move the files, they have no extensions and hence no way to differentiate Word, Excel, PDF, etc.
We do not have a tool that's provided by Novell to do that. We do have some partners. I'm not sure if there's a lot of GroupWise, if this particular person has extensive libraries they need to move. We've got some partners. I know Novell's services team has some experience with that, but we don't have an automated tool for that today. We expect that tool to come out in the Hudson or the release here with no name after Hudson timeframe. Because Vibe really is the document management solution that we're moving forward with. GroupWise has a lot of great capabilities, but they're not being enhanced at all. So we're getting Vibe to the same level and more than GroupWise has, and then at that point we'll have automated tools that will help with that. But it won't be till either Hudson or the release after timeframe.
Okay, and then one last question is, with the speed up, any news on linking between Vibe sites, i.e. shared synced workspaces between sites?
That has not been accelerated at all in our time frame, so the earliest that would be there would also be my last comment. It would either be Hudson or this no name here. It wouldn't be till the 2013 time frame. We don't have, priority-wise, we don't have the synchronization or multiple access of Vibe sites from one place in that time frame, no.
Okay, perfect. That looks like